Welcome, everyone, to the Shared Value Podcast, where we explore how businesses can drive both profits and positive impact. I'm Keaton Sati, your host, and today we have an incredible guest whose journey perfectly illustrates how purpose and business success can go hand in hand. Joining me is Eliud Njeru, a dynamic entrepreneur and sustainability practitioner with a background in agricultural engineering and presently pursuing a PhD. Njeru brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in the intersection of business and social impact. His early experiences have definitely impacted how he runs business, and we are going to delve into this in today's episode, which we've entitled The Shared Value Entrepreneur: Lessons from Social Impact to Business Innovation. Eliud is currently the CEO of Touch Communications Limited, where he is pioneering innovative business solutions that align sustainability with profitability. His story is a powerful example of how young entrepreneurs can turn their passion for impact into real business success. So let's get started. Eliud, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So, from our earlier conversation offline, I remember you told me that you are currently a PhD student of sustainability, I believe.
Yes.
So, just to set the stage, especially because we're talking sustainability on this channel, if you could have a conversation with any sustainability leader, living or or not, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Interesting. Actually, the very first one, unfortunately, I can't have a conversation with him because he's gone.
Mm.
Um, that is the late Bob Collymore, the former CEO of Safaricom PLC.
Amazing. So, what would you ask him?
Um, he pioneered and implemented this amazing philosophy at Safaricom PLC of basically shared value, just having a bottom line, which is, or rather, bottom lines that are beyond profit, and just leading the company to realize that in doing good to people, in transforming the lives of people, then profits will follow. And having been a partner of Safaricom for some time, almost 10 years now, uh, that is something I lived with and I experienced. Unfortunately, I never got a chance of talking to him,
Mm.
but it resonated every time with me and how I had wanted to do things, even though it wasn't company policy, Safaricom policy, that we must follow suit and do business the way they are doing it because we are dealers.
Mm.
Uh, the second person, therefore, is actually his successor. Why I would like to talk to him is just to see how he continues to embody that philosophy,
Yeah.
uh, and what plans are there. Because I think it's not just a philosophy. I think it's divine. It's something absolutely useful. But imagine it's out of that I got my research interest in PhD,
Okay.
and I would be needing to ask him the question, which is the big question in my research.
Mm.
That is, why would Safaricom be so good in this, have a philosophy, have a means of implementing it, but the 400 or so dealers uh, who get Safaricom services out to the people, and tens of thousands of M-Pesa agents who are small companies, uh, may not be so deliberate in doing what Safaricom is doing. Where is the mismatch? And were they able to do this, or had they been able to do this? How much impact would be realized at the grassroots for poverty alleviation purposes? So that has become my passion, and that is why I would like to speak to Peter and Deborah if I had a chance, just to understand what is happening, right now, and why that mismatch, why that gap exists, why is that gap existing? The third person maybe would be Mwangi, Mr. James Mwangi. I just find him very proactive in initiatives that give value beyond the business that he is doing, and I and also to see how much value he gets in return out of the things that he does for society.
And I'm sure, especially with how you have been working in social impact, you already understand that the value is not just financial.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
I can imagine you as a dealer and looking at Safaricom, whose mantra is always transforming lives. It means something totally meaningful for you, right?
Yes.
Exciting. Let's see how we'll move going forward, because you never know where conversations will lead, right? You may find
Mm.
yourself before Peter Ndegwa speaking to him about this and impacting more dealers, hopefully, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go back a bit and just help us to know a bit about you.
So,
You've already shared.
sorry.
Yes, yes, please.
I'm sorry. I should have mentioned the fourth person, actually, whom I just learned about after I talked to you. And this is
Okay.
Tiki Bernard,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Tiki Bernard, I just listened to her and her journey in authoring this Shared Value Africa.
Uh,
And I was amazed. I was like, I think this is someone I would like to sit across the table with and just see what was her motivation and where is it taking her? How is she realizing this dream, which seems so strong in her? Because I think there is quite uh, a shared philosophy and value between my thinking and hers. I think she can really, really enrich what I'm trying to do.
that can be a wish that I can be able to fulfill. So let it the conversation goes. You know, to me.
Yes.
But it's great to hear because even when I was talking to her in the previous episode, seeing how the past actually led her into the present was very amazing. And that's exactly why I wanted to know more about you. What is your history? Why did you now start looking at the Bob Collymores, Peter, the Peters and the James Mwangi? Why did you start looking at them that way? So please share with us a bit about your history.
Thank you. I have a long history, which I can't share all here, of course. But maybe I'll share what is relevant to what we're discussing, and what influences what I'm doing and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Um, told you earlier that I am my basic training is in agricultural engineering,
Mm,
and after I graduated from Egerton back in 1995. I thought I would work in industry and make money. I mean, that was my aspiration as a young man.
mm,
And fortunately, I think, or by divine purpose, I didn't get the job for 1 year. So I the only job I got to get was with an Anglican diocese of Embu, which gave me a job to help a community in Moya to be self-reliant in food production, to have food security. I said, fine, let me try this out. Let me work for 1 year and see what happens. Now, when I got involved with the community, visiting homesteads every day, having a conversation with them, and trying to find solutions together and implementing them, basically helping them to be in charge of their own lives.
mm,
My life sort of changed, and I felt, my goodness, if these people have stopped relying on relief, and now, because after 2 years or so, they were already beginning to turn the tide and becoming food sufficient, self reliant in food production, and the turning point was when I went and they gave me food in baskets to carry home. And I was wondering whether that was the right thing to do. I mean, it was so moving. I felt, oh my, I think I am called to transform lives, like the company I'm working with.
Nice one.
And this is where I belong, not necessarily in, processing industries and all that. I think I belong in the interfacing of certain activities with the people's livelihoods. And what I needed to do was now to turn myself from being that, hardcore engineer to a social one. Fortunately, I found a school in Manchester, uh, which was able to offer me, because I still wanted to be a good engineering project manager. I still wanted to do that. So I had a school, Institute of Development Policy and Management, as well as the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, UMIST. They, they, they both gave me a course, a master's degree in engineering project management, as well as development policy and management. And that now changed me to being a lot more focused in implementing community-based programs for sustainability. Um, yes. Then after I left uh, my training, I came back and the same organization that had hired me before I left, the Anglican Church, now I was given the ultimate job in the church of leading Anglican development services in the entire country. That is to spearhead social transformation initiatives of the church. That is hospitals, food security programs, all those programs that the church runs. I did that for 10 years. And you can imagine what that did for me in terms of not just trying to make money, because the church's call is not to make money from, but to reach out to people and cause them to have dignified lives. So the main thing there is my desire to see dignified communities. It was born out of working at the Anglican Development Services, because every day was about how do we dignify people, either through advocacy, through training, through empowerment programs, and all that. Then on after that, after my 10 years, I proceeded on to Christian Aid UK, which again was about the same thing. And so my total formation, because I think I worked in that setup for almost 20 years, I my view of people changed. When I see a community, when I see a group of people, the first thing that wells up in me is how how can I contribute to their well-being? And if I'm doing something in their midst, how do I make sure that I do no harm? So all those concepts became part of my formation. After Christian Aid, I became a businessman because I had always wanted to do business. I mean, I love entrepreneurship. And even the voluntary work that I was doing it as a business, not for money, really, not for profit that time. But I also wanted to do business for profit. And earlier on, I had decided for me to do this, I'm going to do an MBA so that I can run it and run my business well. So I started a business. I started Touch Communications, and the main work of that company was to be an intermediary for Safaricom. So, I mean, simply put, a Safaricom dealer, and that's what I did for 10 years, since I think 2015. Now, the way I did things, and that's where now I would connect with the late Bob Collymore, is all these things he would say about people, about Safaricom being for people. Uh, Even the current slogan is that is for you. Uh, it would make a whole world of difference to me. I don't think it made the same difference to everyone else. It never made the same to everyone. But to me, I would connect with it because that's what my life had been about. And therefore, without being told by anyone, my co-director and I would design our whole work to be not just about money. And of course, we had to make money, but we created other bottom lines beyond profit. which we would measure our success against. And I remember a part of it was, what good are we doing to people? How many people are we employing? Without necessarily asking what costs are going towards employing more people, but just asking if we can bring in one more person and they have good work to do, they'll bring in their own skills and innovation, then that's a family. That's a household that we have taken care of. And that meant a lot to us. So every year we'd be able to count how many more people have joined the company. And as they grew from one person when we started to 10 people to 100 people, that became our measure of success. Now, part B was beyond now people and their livelihoods being transformed by our giving them work. What more? What more good do we, how much, let me put it this way, how much are we being salt and light in our own premises where we're running businesses? How different are we from everyone else? I mean, of course, the motivation is not to be different, but what difference are we making where we are, where we are doing business? And that is, I think, the story that was featured by Ali Sayuma, which we discussed, uh, was born out of that kind of question. How can we do this business differently so that it has meaning to the guys who are surrounding us, whom we call part of our community? Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I think I'd just sit and listen for longer than this, than the scheduled 50 minutes. This is amazing. So I wonder, with the mentors that you've been watching from afar, the Bobs and Mwangi, what one piece of advice or what one action have they undertaken that still resonates with you and is like a guiding light or part of a guiding light in this new career that you've undertaken?
Actually, let me just go a step back, not really to correct you, but to tell you that, sometimes when you want to draw our lessons from very big cases, or very,
Mm-hmm.
so we feel disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
um, as if maybe we don't have the power, we don't have the platforms to make that difference. But at the small scale, uh, there are people, to be honest, who have just transformed the way I look at things, and or basically reinforced also my own conviction for shared value. I have
Mm-hmm.
two friends. They run small companies. The first friend is called Grant Smith. He runs a company called Hand in Hand. Uh, It operates in the UK, but it also has operations here in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is called Dr. Patrick Njeru. He runs a pharmacy, a pharmaceutical farm in Embu. And he has also an organization there called Neema Hip. These are individual simple businesses which have actually really, really reinforced my own conviction for shared value. Grant, for instance, is the one who taught my co-director and myself that you can, and by the way, let me just step back and say, they are all inspired by their faith and their view of people,
Mm-hmm.
which I also connect with, because I think what I do, because you do what you do, like you are, so to
Yeah.
say. I don't know, is a better way of putting it that way. You be, and then you do. Yeah. So um I've been a lot inspired by my own faith and friendship with such people, because they say one of the best ways of helping people, like the example he gave, he gave us, which turned our lives around, was that don't even try to educate the child of your friend. Maybe give your friend a job so that he can educate his own child,
Mm-hmm.
right? That way he will retain his own dignity with the children, that it is their father who educated them, as opposed to the children saying, "Oh, I was educated by some guy from the UK," that sort of thing. And when you hire people, give them good pay, so that they are able to fund their lives.
The
Then,
dignity we're talking about.
yes, dignity. There are a lot of people with jobs, but these jobs, I mean, it's sometimes I think they just occupy themselves during the day, but you can't say there is meaningful earnings from those jobs. So one of the convictions we have is give people jobs, but if possible, be the best paying company, be the best paying organization within your environment, even if that really squeezes you profits. And we don't worry much because it is already a bottom line for us. The well-being of people is a bottom line. So we will not just look at it in terms of what the numbers are showing in the profit. So those people have really inspired me in terms of doing small things and having it in their planning, and it's at the center of what they want to be as companies. People and their well-being is right at the center, even as they pursue profits. Yeah. So sorry, I just step back to say that that is there are mentors at the lower level, and why I'm getting concerned with this, as I had mentioned earlier, is the this is really even what is driving me to my PhD. And my PhD is about exploring drivers and barriers to the adoption of socio-environmental sustainability practices in Kenyan SMEs as a pathway to poverty alleviation. Because the bigger boys have been informed by their stakeholders and those who, those who matter about ESGs. So they must report appropriately. They must look good. Some of them are listed companies. So there are expectations on them, either regulatory or otherwise. Yeah. And they do it. And I'm not sure sometimes that they do it out of the heart. Well, either way, what surprises they do it. But there are so few. If you look at the multiplicity at the bottom of all these thousands of companies, like in this case, which I shared with Alice, I am in a small town. There are over 100 businesses there. And the question is, if every business was concerned about the well-being, social and environmental well-being of their, even just outside their premises, how much transformation, how much poverty can we defeat in this country? You know, and so that's why we really want to make sure that even as we do this, there'll be someone to see and want to be part of and copy. In fact, I'm excited about this movement because I'll be very happy to recruit people, even in that small town, to be part of it as we can start conversations because it cannot be enough if we are only doing it alone. But as work of people who want to do good. Yeah. And that good has a way of getting back to be of value to their company.
So, in your estimation, especially based on your experience and even in your research, do you feel that the local SMEs and MSMEs actually have an advantage in implementing such impact compared to the larger organizations?
It's all theoretical now. I've not yet collected empirical data to support this. But right from where I see that, right from where you see it, you know, people do things best if they have a good understanding of their environments to begin with. If I wanted to fix your house and do some things in your house or in your compound, and I wanted to come with money to get it done, and you're not there, it might be very hard for me to do an effective. But if I worked with you, actually, if I gave the money to you and the tools that you need, you see, you know where to pinches, you know what is a priority, you know what has been tried and failed before. That's what we call local knowledge and the value it has in in implementing any program. And that is like in community development, we say you cannot develop people, you only enable them to develop themselves. So when you have that very big company trying to reach out to places, the officers they send to go and do, they'll have no idea, well, Safaricom has a foundation and it sends people out there to go and do things. At one time, I was out there and I was looking at the good job they had done of doing a computer lab for a school. If actually, as a dealer in that area, I had been given that responsibility, I would have possibly done a much better job because I would have selected better. Yeah. Now that I understand the people, I understand the dynamics. Sometimes they'll do things, and then people come over and loot those things because of the participation, the local participation has not been exhausted. This is simply to say, hypothetically, if the multiplicity of the smaller companies down there can have the heart of doing of or having shared value initiatives, and they have the tools to do it, they can do far much more than what one big company does out there because they'll have more resources. Resources are not only financial; they go beyond finances. Yeah, it's skills. Sometimes it's networks and all that.
We have a lot of work to actually ensure that there's capacity building for our entrepreneurs to
Sure.
enhance this impact that they have the potential to implement. Okay, so just as we start to wrap up, please let me know with the experience and the different work that you have done and the impact that you've already created. Are you mentoring any young entrepreneurs?
I would say part of the reason why we hire people, like now we have a program of hiring young graduates, young fellows. We look at their potential. Is not just employment. It is actually, it is like a throughput where they'll come and learn these things. They'll come and learn how we do business and what the useful bottom lines of the future should be, going beyond profit. And as they interact with it, as they get touched by it, when they start their businesses, because we tell our staff, we don't employ people, we employ entrepreneurs. If you're not an entrepreneur, then you can't work. You can't effectively work for us. So these are all budding entrepreneurs. And if where they go, they will carry, allow me to call them the good manners of doing business, then they'll do a better job than ourselves. And you see, I don't know whether the world is going anywhere. What we must be concerned with is starting the right things. And time will cause such immense replication of those good things if there is no diversion to doing wrong things. It's just like the way bad things over time have caught up with us. Corruption. Maybe it's a few people started being corrupt, and then others learned from them and perfected the art, and others learned and made it even more perfect, if there is anything like that. So for me, my concern is in the very small way, have a bunch of people you're turning towards the right tangent, and they start moving. Where there are networks like this, we become part of them. Yeah. And then we do advocacy. Yeah. Because there are incentives to doing this which can accelerate this good behavior in business. And these are some of the factors I will be trying to find out in my research. Yeah. What sort of incentives come into play and how do they influence smaller companies to want to do stuff that is not necessarily only there to generate profit for them? What will cause them to be concerned about the environment and even to do no harm to the environment and the social dynamics in the places where they're doing business? Um, yeah, what sort of are there any, for example, I mean, I was just thinking loudly and asking through the lawmakers or the Kenya Association of Manufacturers or the Trade and Industry Ministry, how can we lobby for reporting of smaller companies who are required by KRA to report on the profit or loss that they have made? So that's where they stop. But can we be required to report beyond those numbers so that we report value, yeah, the value that we have created.
Beyond
And they
finance.
find a way of incentivizing that. Yeah. Because where there is incentive, people begin to be very proactive about it and even to want uh, to win. Can there be competitions, awards, which spur people to want to do this so that they can come out on top in their own localities, as being able to influence change, and socio environmental sustainability. So there are things that can be done. The government can be at the forefront so that it stops just asking for money from us and then assuming it will bring that money back to help the situation on the ground. Fine, it does. But we can do far much more if we retain a bit of that money and every one of us, every business, did something towards the good of society. We would give greater value than what the government can come back to do. And you'll be amazed, of course, where you're coming from. There is a business almost everywhere in this country. There's a business running everywhere in this country. So if those businesses can become points of transformation, points of social, environmental, positive impacts, I think we would very rapidly, very, very rapidly defeat poverty in this country and in Africa in general. We are not short of businesses. They are there all over. But the question is, what are they doing? Are they adding to the problem where they become very exploitative? They make people even poorer. Or what do we do to turn them around to be forces for good beyond providing products and services, which is essential for people, of course? Then they can have an extra mile to become points of transformation. One of the things that we have done, and I think the mindset is the main thing. Mindset is the main thing. Like, for instance, let me just tell you this quick example. We we sell 4G devices and 5G devices. These are phones, and we have a huge campaign at Safaricom to convert people from 2G. Those are the small, the so-called kabambes, the mulikamwizis, to smartphones. Yeah, even basic entry smartphones, because of the amazing work that a smartphone does to anyone who has it on their hands. They can access credit, they can take a photo of a cow they have or a goat and put it somewhere, and people will see it, ask for it, exchange money using M-Pesa. It just, and that has really transformed lives. So, just taking the penetration or the uptake of smartphones in the community is an initiative for good beyond money. We have been able, for instance, to half the margins which we were to make from a unit that is sold. So that, because what I'll check from my staff is, and I told them, I don't want to see how much money you've made from selling these phones, but I want to look at how many phones you've sold, how many phones you've pushed out, because that means how many people have the gadget on their hands. As long as you don't do it at a loss. Because if you do it at a loss, then you will not be able to subsidize.
Very, very true.
But you can do double the number, meaning double the number of people will have the handsets, and you'll make the same amount of money. So again, that began to change their mindset. And I found it very amazing that, I was, wow, yeah, we had never looked at it like that. Yeah.
Wow,
Then
Eliud,
not to
I
mention,
think I could
sorry.
listen to you for hours. What's it all about? So we have to make plans to unpack more of this, because from listening to your movement from agricultural engineering into social engineering and backing up your desire with further training, and then starting a business, looking at the bottom line beyond profit to measure your success, thinking of people as the people that you are serving rather than the money that you can get from them. I think it has been amazing listening to the role of faith in your view of people, the mentors, especially the local mentors. We keep on talking about our need to tell our stories. And I think you are the beginning of amazing stories that are coming out from our local enterprise environment into what we can do. I can't thank you enough, Eliud. And
Can I just there's something really I wouldn't like us to end
20
without
seconds.
saying.
20 seconds.
Oh dear, 20 seconds. Ah, sorry. I may not have the time. But it is just to say that it needs to start with the love for people and care for people. Then you take the initiative, and sometimes it turns back a profit. Like that whole story you had of giving border borders outside the shop a place to sit, and then they offer you security and you don't have to hire guards. You don't go to get them so that you don't hire a guard, but the thing of not hiring a guard comes after you had already stepped out to dignify them. When you give the shoe shiners a place to work, then they get more business and they come to do the M-Pesa in your shop. But that was not the intention. It's like a useful byproduct, you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eliud, for joining us. And thank you all for tuning in to this edition of the Shared Value Conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and join the conversation on our social media platforms, Shared Value Africa. Let's continue to challenge the status quo, foster collaboration, and create lasting impact together. We'll see you again in the next Tuesday of the coming month. Goodbye.